The date was October 26, 1942. Henderson Field sat sprawled across Guadalcanal, and the time read 2230 hours. Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page held tight to the wooden furniture of his water-cooled Browning machine gun, watching the jungle tree line with the intensity of a man who knew what was coming. Waves of Japanese infantry began pouring from the darkness, their silhouettes growing larger against the humid Pacific night. Arisaka rifles cracked through the thick air with their distinctive bark, but something felt wrong to the Marines. Alongside the familiar rhythm of bolt-action rifle fire came something new, something different. The rapid, rolling sound of semi-automatic gunfire mixed in with the staccato crack of the bolt actions. The Marines recognized it immediately. Something had changed. Just 13 days earlier, on October 13, 1942, the 164th Infantry Regiment from the North Dakota National Guard had landed on Guadalcanal. They became the first United States Army unit to engage the Japanese in offensive combat operations in the Pacific. What made their arrival significant wasn't just their fresh numbers. These soldiers carried with them a weapon that would reshape the entire nature of infantry combat. The men charging from the jungle tonight had no idea what they were about to face. They were running straight into the first mass deployment of semi-automatic rifles in Pacific warfare. The M1 Garand had arrived. With it came a fundamental shift in how infantry battles would be fought. The Pacific War had exposed a glaring weakness in American infantry tactics. The Japanese had spent years perfecting their assault methods across China, and their formula was simple: overwhelming force through banzai charges, waves of soldiers designed to crash through defensive lines using raw aggression and numbers. These tactics had worked with terrifying effectiveness against Chinese conscripts armed with outdated Mauser rifles. But the mathematics of bolt-action rifle fire made Japanese strategy workable. A skilled soldier with a bolt-action rifle could fire around 15 aimed rounds each minute. Between shots, he had to work the bolt, lift it up, pull it back, push it forward, lock it down. Those precious seconds of manual operation gave attacking troops precious yards of ground. In some cases, 10 to 15 yards of territory could be covered during each reload cycle. In the tight jungle terrain of the Pacific Islands, where most fights happened at less than 100 yards, these limitations could be deadly. The Imperial Japanese Army understood this constraint perfectly. Their Type 38 and Type 99 Arisaka rifles worked just like American Springfield M1903s. Same slow rate of fire, same mechanical delay between shots. Japanese commanders had built their entire doctrine around this limitation, emphasizing bayonet charges and the psychological terror of close assault. But something had been brewing in Massachusetts. At Springfield Armory, engineers had been working on a different kind of rifle since 1936. The M1 Garand officially replaced the old Springfield on January 9, 1936. This wasn't just a modest improvement or a minor refinement. It represented a complete rethinking of what an infantry rifle should be. The implications spread far beyond individual soldiers and their firefights. Modern warfare had become as much about industrial output as battlefield skill. Whichever nation could arm its soldiers with better weapons in sufficient quantities would possess the crucial edge. Germany understood this and developed the MG-34 machine gun. Japan invested heavily in naval aviation, but America was about to prove that a rifleman with the right equipment could still decide battles. John Cantius Garand was an unexpected choice for such an innovation. He was born on January 1, 1888, in a small town outside Montreal called Saint-Remy, Quebec. At age 11, his family pulled up stakes and moved to Connecticut. By age 12, he was working as a bobbin boy in a textile mill. His talent for mechanics showed early. At 14, he designed and patented a screwjack. In 1919, he arrived at Springfield Armory and began pursuing the dream of a semi-automatic rifle. His early attempts struggled for acceptance, but he kept pushing, kept refining, until he developed a unique gas-operated system that separated the M1 from everything else being considered. The mechanism worked by capturing gas from the fired cartridge. This expanding gas cycled the action automatically, allowing rapid shots without manual reloading. The M1 Garand represented engineering brilliance combined with practical design sense. Weighing only 9.5 pounds, it featured an 8-round clip that fed ammunition automatically. The gas-operated system captured expanding gases from each shot, automatically ejected the empty casing, chambered a fresh round, and cocked the hammer for the next shot, all in less than 1/10 of a second. The tactical advantages were revolutionary. While a bolt-action rifle delivered 15 aimed rounds per minute, the M1 Garand pushed out 40 to 50 aimed rounds per minute. That was more than triple the firepower. More importantly, the shooter never lost sight of the target between shots. Every trigger squeeze sent a 30 Jallo 6 Springfield cartridge downrange with 2,800 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, enough to punch clean through 20 inches of white pine at 100 yards. The production numbers told the story of American war mobilization. Springfield Armory began producing rifles in September 1937, starting at just 10 per day. Within 2 years, output jumped to 100 daily. By December 1941, roughly 29,700 M1 rifles had been manufactured. But this was merely the beginning. Garand possessed another crucial advantage beyond engineering skill. He understood manufacturing as deeply as he understood mechanics. His industrial background meant he designed the rifle not just for performance, but for efficient production. He grasped the machines that would build it as thoroughly as the rifle itself. This dual expertise became critical when America needed to equip millions of soldiers rapidly. The night between October 24th and 25th would be remembered as the Battle for Henderson Field, though the Marines who lived through it simply called it Dugout Sunday. Lieutenant Colonel Lewis B. Puller's 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, held a vital section of the defensive perimeter. These Marines, armed primarily with M1903 Springfields, had been fighting for weeks with ammunition running low and casualty lists growing. When Puller asked for reinforcements, they arrived in the form of the 3rd Battalion, 164th Infantry Regiment, led by Lieutenant Colonel Robert K. Hall from Jamestown, North Dakota. Private First Class Leonard Stefanich of the 164th Infantry would later describe that moment of joining forces with the Marines. The Marines looked at our rifles like they'd never seen anything like them, curiosity mixed with doubt in their eyes. Some of them figured semi-automatic fire would just waste ammunition we couldn't afford to waste. Japanese artillery opened the bombardment at 2100 hours. Intelligence officers estimated that General Masao Maruyama's Sendai Division had gathered over 7,000 troops for this assault. The Japanese strategy was straightforward: break through American lines using successive waves, with each new wave exploiting the reload delays that bolt-action rifles created. Puller and Hall coordinated their defense carefully, positioning Army soldiers alongside Marines in foxholes. M1 rifle squads from the 164th provided overlapping fields of fire with Marine positions. When 2200 hours came, the jungle erupted. Japanese soldiers poured from the darkness in company-sized formations, bayonets fixed to their Type 30 rifles, officers carrying traditional katana swords. The distinctive banzai cry echoed across the perimeter as the assault began. Marines opened fire with their Springfields, producing the familiar crack-crack-crack rhythm of bolt-action combat. But mixed among those sounds came something different. The 164th Infantry opened up with their M1 Garands. The difference appeared instantly and fatally. Where a Marine worked his bolt after each shot, momentarily losing his target, the Army soldiers kept firing continuously. 8 rounds, one after another, each bullet finding bodies in the tightly packed Japanese formations. The distinctive ping of clips being ejected rang out as soldiers reloaded in under 3 seconds and resumed their fire. Corporal Joseph Eiffel of the 164th would testify about it afterward. The Japanese came at us in waves exactly like we'd been warned they would, but they seemed completely shocked by the volume of fire we were throwing back. You could see the chaos in their formations when gaps that should have been there just weren't there anymore. At 23:30 hours, the second wave struck with greater force. Japanese doctrine demanded each new wave would capitalize on defender exhaustion and ammunition shortage. But the battlefield had transformed. M1 Garands outgunned the Springfield bolt actions held by Marines as wave after wave of Japanese soldiers crashed against the perimeter. When dawn broke on October 25th, more than 2,200 Japanese bodies lay scattered across the approaches to Henderson Field. American losses stayed below 100 killed and wounded. The 164th Infantry's firepower proved decisive. The regiment earned Marine respect and received the Navy Presidential Unit citation. Corporal Kenneth S. Foubert of the 164th Infantry had already made another kind of history 13 days earlier. He became the first U.S. Army soldier to die in combat after Pearl Harbor when shrapnel from a Japanese bomb struck him as his unit came ashore on October 13th. The victory at Guadalcanal sent tremors through both American and Japanese military command. Pacific Theater commanders fired off urgent cables demanding accelerated M1 production and faster distribution. Springfield Armory shifted to round-the-clock operations. The transformation was stunning. Production lines reorganized for continuous operation day and night. Workers who had previously built typewriters and sewing machines now assembled components for America's primary infantry weapon. By mid-1943, Springfield's output reached remarkable efficiency levels, eventually exceeding 4,000 rifles daily. A second production source came online in 1940 when Winchester Repeating Arms Company received contracts to manufacture M1 Garands. Winchester's history with mass-producing sporting rifles made them invaluable. Their New Haven, Connecticut factory completely retooled production lines, introducing manufacturing innovations that streamlined assembly further. Winchester's factory transformation showcased American industrial mobilization at its finest. Companies that once produced sporting goods became weapons factories. By 1943, Winchester employed over 15,000 workers, operating 3 continuous shifts. Women entered arms manufacturing for the first time, becoming expert rifle assemblers. Quality control inspectors examined every single rifle at 37 different stages of production. By 1941, production rates climbed dramatically, reaching over 600 rifles daily. Approximately 5.4 million M1 Garands came off production lines during the war years. This staggering output resulted from blending traditional craftsmanship with modern mass production techniques applied to military firearms at unprecedented scale. Each rifle required 150 separate manufacturing operations. The receiver alone demanded 72 distinct machining steps. Barrel production involved drilling through 24 inches of specialized ordnance steel, maintaining tolerances of 2/10,000ths of an inch. The rifling cut 6 grooves in a right-hand twist, completing 1 full turn in 10 inches, ideal for stabilizing the 30-006 cartridge. Yet production represented just half the challenge. Rifles had to reach combat units across 2 oceans. The logistics chain extended from Springfield and New Haven through American training camps, across submarine-patrolled waters to depots in England, North Africa, and the Pacific. On November 8, 1942, Operation Torch began. While the 164th Infantry continued their fight on Guadalcanal, American forces came ashore in North Africa. The 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, landed at Oran, Algeria, with every rifleman carrying an M1 Garand. North Africa presented entirely different combat challenges from Pacific jungles. Open desert warfare with engagement distances exceeding 500 yards would test the M1's accuracy and durability under brutal conditions. Sand and dust coated everything. Temperature swings ranged from 120 degrees Fahrenheit during daylight to near freezing at night, stressing every component. Technical Sergeant William Crawford of the 36th Infantry Division earned the Medal of Honor near Attu Villa, Italy, in September 1943. His citation described how he attacked 3 German machine gun positions single-handedly. Armed with his M1 Garand and grenades, Crawford destroyed all 3 positions, using rapid semi-automatic fire to suppress enemies long enough to approach with grenades. Desert warfare's operational demands differed from jungle combat, but the M1's superiority remained decisive. German forces carrying the Karabiner 98K bolt-action rifle found themselves consistently outmatched in firefights. The Wehrmacht responded by increasing MP-40 submachine gun production and accelerating development of semi-automatic rifles like the Gewehr 43, but German efforts arrived too late and in inadequate quantities. While Germany managed to field 400,000 Gewehr 43 rifles throughout the entire war, America had already produced over 2 million M1 Garands by the end of 1943 alone. September 1943 brought American forces into Italy's mountains. This terrain favored defensive positions and revealed the M1 Garand's remarkable versatility. Corporal Charles E. Commando Kelly of the 143rd Infantry Regiment received the Medal of Honor for his actions near Attu Villa, Italy, on September 13, 1943. When German counterattacks hit his position, Kelly held them off with his rifle until it overheated and jammed. He grabbed another rifle, and when that failed too, he pulled pins from 60mm mortar shells and threw them like grenades, killing at least 5 enemy soldiers. Kelly's actions, though involving various weapons, showed the aggressive infantry tactics that the M1 Garand enabled across the theatre. Private First Class Floyd K. Lindstrom of the 3rd Infantry Division received the Medal of Honor for actions near Mignano, Italy, on November 11, 1943. When German machine gun fire pinned his squad, Lindstrom used his M1 to provide covering fire while maneuvering to flank the position. His rapid, accurate rifle fire suppressed the enemy crew long enough to destroy the gun position with grenades. M1 rifle supply took time catching up with demand, and many Italian units didn't receive full Garand equipment until mid-1944. Units still carrying M19903 Springfields struggled badly during close-quarters mountain fighting. The Italian campaign revealed another critical M1 strength: reliability in terrible conditions. Rain, mud, and snow plagued soldiers constantly in the mountains. The M1's gas-operated system, while intricate, proved remarkably resistant to fouling. Soldiers reported that even when caked with mud, the rifle would function after quick field maintenance. June 6, 1944, brought D-Day. American soldiers surged through the surf at Omaha Beach, carrying M1 Garands wrapped in protective gas-proof bags. The rifles had received special preservative coatings to protect them through saltwater immersion. Private Carlton W. Barrett of the 18th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, earned the Medal of Honor for his D-Day actions. Armed with his M1 Garand and ammunition gathered from fallen comrades, Barrett eliminated an entire German machine gun squad that had pinned his unit on the beach. Normandy's hedgerow country created unusual tactical conditions. Engagement distances rarely exceeded 50 yards, and the ability to deliver rapid, accurate fire while moving became paramount. By the summer of 1944, military personnel at all ranks began trading in their lighter carbines for something with considerably more punch. The M1 Garand rifle, chambered in the powerful .30-06 cartridge, offered exactly what soldiers needed for the brutal street fighting now consuming Europe. Those heavy rounds could punch straight through doors, brick walls, and fortified positions that lesser weapons simply could not penetrate. Staff Sergeant Walter D. Ailes served with the 18th Infantry Regiment, and his actions between June 9th and 10th near Gaville, France, would eventually earn him the Medal of Honor. Over 2 brutal days of nearly constant combat, Ailes deployed his Garand with devastating effectiveness, systematically destroying German strongpoints. In one particularly fierce moment, he charged a mortar crew position entirely alone, his rifle barking rapidly as he eliminated the entire team with controlled semi-automatic fire. The fighting for St. Lo that July provided stark proof of just how lethal the Garand had become in close-quarters urban combat. When soldiers found themselves fighting building to building, the penetrating power of that .30-06 round became absolutely crucial. Brick walls, wooden doors, and improvised barriers that would stop other calibers simply disintegrated under sustained Garand fire. German soldiers quickly developed a grim familiarity with that distinctive sound, multiple rifles pouring accurate fire in rapid succession, a noise that meant danger and death. The war's tide shifted dramatically when General Douglas MacArthur stepped ashore in the Philippines on October 20, 1944, ready to make good on his legendary promise. 4 complete army divisions landed with him, every soldier equipped with the reliable Garand. But the Japanese they faced had learned from 2 years of bitter experience. They understood American firepower now and had fundamentally altered their approach to warfare. The tropical Philippines presented challenges the rifle had never faced. Monsoon downpours soaked everything. Humidity hung at nearly 100%, turning equipment into rust factories. Salt spray from nearby seas corroded metal. Thick mud clung to every surface. Through it all, the Garand kept functioning. The enemy, meanwhile, abandoned the suicidal human wave charges of earlier campaigns. Instead, they dug in. They created elaborate networks of caves, fortified positions hidden underground, and small hidden bunkers that forced American soldiers into grinding, methodical warfare. Private First Class Dirk J. Vlug of the 126th Infantry Regiment found himself facing this new tactical reality on December 15, 1944, near Lyman. When the moment came to act, Vlug moved forward alone against 5 separate Japanese defensive positions. Armed with his Garand and a captured rocket launcher he had taken from a wounded comrade, he systematically eliminated enemy strongpoints. His rapid rifle fire kept Japanese soldiers pinned down while he maneuvered closer, using the gun's sustained firepower to suppress and destroy. The fighting shifted dramatically in February 1945 when American forces began liberating Manila. The city itself became the battlefield. Every building transformed into a fortress. Every window and doorway concealed potential enemy fire. Inside those structures, the Garand proved indispensable. Those heavy .30-06 rounds punched through concrete, timber and sheet metal barricades with terrifying authority. Technical Sergeant Donald E. Rudolph served with the 20th Infantry Regiment when Manila's urban hell reached its peak on February 5, 1945. Operating almost entirely alone that day, Rudolph cleared an entire city block by himself, his Garand methodically eliminating Japanese soldiers who thought themselves protected behind fortified walls and barricades. During that 6-hour engagement, his rifle fired over 400 rounds without a single malfunction. The weapon functioned absolutely perfectly under the most demanding conditions imaginable. The campaign accelerated toward its climax when American forces turned their attention to Okinawa. Operation Iceberg, launched on April 1, 1945, represented the single largest amphibious assault the Pacific War had yet witnessed. Over 180,000 American soldiers and Marines stormed that island, the overwhelming majority carrying either M1 Garands or M1 carbines. They faced a Japanese general, Mitsuru Ushijima, who had planned something different this time. Rather than attempting to stop the invasion at the beach, Ushijima prepared a defense stretching deep into the island. His soldiers occupied natural cave systems and coral ridges. They would make the Americans pay for every yard of ground. Private First Class Desmond Doss arrived with the 77th Infantry Division, serving as a combat medic, and he would achieve immortal fame without ever firing his weapon. Yet the men Doss saved depended absolutely on their M1s to protect him while he worked. On May 5, 1945, during the assault on the Maida Escarpment and Hacksaw Ridge, soldiers kept their rifles blazing to suppress Japanese positions, while Doss single-handedly carried 75 wounded men to safety. His comrades' accurate, sustained fire provided the only thing standing between life and death. Corporal Thomas J. Coolidge of the 96th Infantry Division experienced the Okinawa fighting firsthand and described it with brutal clarity. The Japanese no longer charged in waves. Instead, they forced Americans to come to them, contesting every cave, every concealed position. Without the M1's firepower, Coolidge insisted, American forces would have been simply overwhelmed. When a hidden enemy position suddenly opened fire, you had to pump 8 rounds into it immediately, or someone on your squad died. There was no margin for error. Sugarloaf Hill became synonymous with Okinawa's savage nature. The 6-day battle from May 12th through the 18th witnessed an almost unimaginable expenditure of ammunition. Marines and soldiers fired over 30,000 rounds of .30-06 ammunition every single day. M1 rifles fired continuously until their barrels glowed red-hot, delivering the sustained covering fire necessary to suppress and defeat Japanese defensive positions. Private First Class Clarence B. Craft of the 380th Infantry Regiment earned the Medal of Honor on May 31, 1945, fighting on Hen Hill. Armed with his Garand and hand grenades, Craft launched himself at a Japanese-held escarpment entirely alone. He systematically destroyed multiple machine gun nests and killed dozens of enemy soldiers at close range. His rifle's rapid-fire capability allowed him to suppress enemy fire while he maneuvered up that deadly slope inch by inch. By June 22, 1945, when the fighting ended, American forces had suffered over 50,000 casualties. Japanese losses exceeded 100,000 dead. The Garand had functioned reliably through the entire ordeal, 82 days of mud, rain, and relentless combat. The rifle had simply proven itself. The statistics told a straightforward story of American industrial capacity and tactical advantage. During World War II, American manufacturers produced 5,468,772 M01 Garands. Springfield Armory alone contributed approximately 3.5 million rifles to that total. Winchester produced over 500,000. At peak production, all facilities combined turned out over 5,000 rifles every single day. Combined with ammunition manufacturing, factories produced 47 billion rounds of 30 Uso-6 ammunition. Each rifle cost the government $85 in 1945, equivalent to roughly $1,200 in modern currency. The performance specifications reinforced why this weapon changed everything. An M1 could deliver aimed fire at 300% the rate of a bolt-action rifle. It maintained effective range out to 500 yards with iron sights, extending to 1,000 yards when conditions allowed. A trained marksman achieved first-round hit probability of roughly 73% at 300 yards. A soldier could fire over 100 rounds before accuracy degraded significantly. Between failures, the rifle typically functioned for over 5,000 rounds. Barrels lasted 10,000 rounds before replacement became necessary. That arithmetic translated directly into battlefield superiority. A typical American rifle squad of 12 men, equipped with 10 M1s and 2 Browning automatic rifles, could unleash 400 to 500 aimed rounds per minute. An equivalent Japanese squad armed with Arisaka rifles managed only 150 to 180 rounds per minute. That threefold advantage at the squad level created decisive tactical superiority in almost every encounter. Master Sergeant John C. Clark of the 7th Infantry Division kept careful track during engagements on Okinawa. His platoon consistently expended ammunition at a 4-to-1 ratio compared to enemy units while achieving 6-to-1 casualty advantages. Pure mathematics, Clark noted in his report. We could shoot faster, more accurately, and nobody had to expose themselves working a bolt action while the enemy aimed back. German military documents captured in 1945 validated this assessment repeatedly. A Wehrmacht training circular from December 1944 explicitly warned officers that American infantry firepower at the squad level exceeded German capabilities by approximately 3 times. Frontal engagements at ranges under 300 meters should be avoided unless substantial supporting weapons were available. Japanese military intelligence showed similar concerns. An Imperial General Headquarters document from March 1944 acknowledged that American semi-automatic rifles had neutralized Japan's traditional advantages in spirit and determination. Fundamentally new tactics would need development to counter this technological superiority. The psychological dimensions proved equally important. Wehrmacht Obergefreiter Friedrich Bertenrath, captured during the Battle of the Bulge, described during interrogation how Americans were always identifiable by their rifles' constant rapid fire. That unceasing bang, bang, bang meant German soldiers could not advance without accepting heavy casualties. Younger soldiers became demoralized, having expected a more balanced contest. The impact extended far beyond any single battle. The Garand fundamentally reshaped military doctrine, influenced industrial planning, and revolutionized the entire nature of infantry combat. American Army leadership completely rewrote infantry tactics around the M1's capabilities. Field Manual 7-10, covering infantry rifle company operations and revised in 1944, emphasized fire and maneuver tactics specifically designed to exploit the Garand's rapid-fire advantages. Marching fire, advancing while delivering sustained accurate shots, became practical only with semi-automatic rifles. Squad formations changed to concentrate firepower while reducing vulnerability. Traditional line formations disappeared, replaced by dispersed formations allowing concentrated fire from multiple directions simultaneously. The fire team concept that would later be refined during Korea and Vietnam originated directly from tactics developed around the Garands' performance. Fire superiority, always critical in infantry warfare, became absolutely paramount with this weapon. American doctrine emphasized gaining and maintaining fire superiority as the absolute requirement before any maneuver could succeed. This represented a marked departure from German doctrine, which emphasized maneuver to achieve local superiority, and radically different from Japanese doctrine, which relied on spiritual superiority and shock action. Mass production of Garands drove innovations in American manufacturing, with effects reaching far beyond military applications. Barrel production techniques adapted to civilian industries like automotive drive shafts and oil drilling equipment. Quality control systems developed for M1 manufacturing became templates for modern manufacturing standards. Statistical process control, pioneered at Springfield Armory to guarantee interchangeable parts, became standard throughout American industry. The go-no-go gauges essential for M1 production spread throughout manufacturing sectors. When the Korean War erupted on June 25, 1950, American forces drew heavily on their Garand reserves. International Harvester Corporation and Harrington and Richardson Arms joined the production effort during the Korean conflict, with International Harvester alone manufacturing 337,623 M1 Garands between 1953 and 1956. This proved the design's enduring value and demonstrated how quickly American industry could reconstitute military production. The Garand's success triggered a global competition to develop semi-automatic infantry rifles. The Soviet Union accelerated SVT-40 development, though production problems limited deployment. Germany rushed the Gewehr 43 into production, but managed to field fewer than 500,000 throughout the entire war. Even Britain, typically conservative in small arms development, began experimenting with semi-automatic designs. Post-war, virtually every major military adopted semi-automatic or selective fire rifles as standard infantry weapons. Within a decade after World War II ended, the bolt-action rifle, which had dominated battlefields for over 50 years, became relegated to specialized sniper roles. Mikhail Kalashnikov, after first-hand experience against M1-equipped American troops, incorporated lessons learned into his famous AK-47. The FNFAL, adopted by numerous NATO countries, was specifically designed to match or exceed M1 performance. Germany's post-war G3 rifle incorporated design elements addressing weaknesses they had identified when facing American forces equipped with M1s. Captured enemy soldiers consistently reported the psychological impact. Japanese soldier Tadashi Suzuki, captured on Saipan in 1944, told interrogators that his commanders had assured him Americans were weak and soft. Their rifles, though, never stopped shooting. That constant firepower shattered Japanese morale. Soldiers called them the rifles that shoot forever. German Feldwebel Hans Müller, captured in the Hürtgen forest, recalled immediately recognizing Americans by their rifles' distinctive sound. That rapid bang, bang, bang meant taking cover and waiting for artillery. There was simply no way to match American rifle firepower. Fighting M1-equipped troops felt like facing men armed with machine guns. The distinctive ping of the M1's ejecting clip, initially considered a tactical disadvantage, actually became a psychological weapon. Veterans reported that the sound frequently caused enemy soldiers to expose themselves prematurely, thinking Americans had run empty, only to be cut down by other squad members whose rifles remained loaded and ready. The 8-round N-block clip system modernized ammunition supply in practical ways. Clips could be preloaded at supply depots and sealed in waterproof containers for distribution to frontline units. A soldier could carry 80 rounds in 10 clips far more easily than 60 rounds in loose ammunition. The standardization around 30-06 ammunition simplified logistics dramatically. The same round functioned in the M1 Garand, the M1903 Springfield still used for sniping and grenade launching, the Browning automatic rifle, and most American machine guns. This commonality reduced supply complications and allowed ammunition sharing across different weapon systems. General George Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. Coming from a general famous for colorful statements, This wasn't mere exaggeration. The M1 Garand had genuinely changed warfare itself. Master Sergeant Roy Benavides would later earn the Medal of Honor in Vietnam, but he first experienced combat in Korea with an M1 Garand. At the Busan perimeter, his unit faced overwhelming odds, sometimes outnumbered 10-1. The Garand became the equalizer. When Chinese forces launched their human wave attacks, American sustained fire broke them repeatedly. Technical Sergeant Vernon McGarity of the 393rd Infantry Regiment had earned his Medal of Honor during the Battle of the Bulge. Facing horrific wounds to his face and legs from artillery fire on December 16, 1944, McGarity made an extraordinary choice. Evacuation was offered, but he refused. Instead, he returned to his unit positioned near Kringkult, Belgium. There, using whatever weapons came to hand, rifles, different arms, he held back wave after wave of German assault. When his position finally fell under the overwhelming force of the enemy onslaught, he was taken prisoner. Years later, President Harry Truman would recognize his valor, presenting him with the Medal of Honor on January 11, 1946. McGarity's story, though centered on crew-served weapons, revealed something powerful about the kind of resolute defense that soldiers equipped with M1 rifles could mount. This lesson played out again during the Battle of Chip Yong Ni in February 1951. There, surrounded by massive Chinese forces, the 23rd Infantry Regiment faced relentless night assaults. Private First Class Herbert K. Pillow's actions during that brutal battle would earn him the Medal of Honor, though he did not live to receive it. When Chinese forces overran his squad, Pillow pressed forward with his M1. He fired until every round was gone. Then, in a moment of desperate courage, he swung the rifle as a club. When that too was exhausted, he fought with his bare hands against the enemy until he fell. His M1's ability to pour out rapid fire had bought precious time that allowed reinforcements to arrive and save his unit from annihilation. On March 26, 1958, the M1 Garand was officially retired from frontline service, replaced by the M14 rifle. Yet its story did not end there, far from it. Reserve and National Guard units carried M1s well into the 1970s. Navy ships maintained them for line-throwing guns into the 1990s. The Greek army took M1 Garands into actual combat as late as 1974 during the Turkish invasion of Cyprus. Today, the M1 continues in service in ways both ceremonial and competitive. Military drill teams across America employ the M1 rifle for precision movements. The U.S. Marine Corps Silent Drill Team, the Air Force Academy Cadet Honor Guard, and countless ROTC units. The rifle's perfect balance and solid construction make it uniquely suited for such exacting work. The Norwegian Royal Guard carries M1 Garands in ceremonial duties, honoring the American weapon that helped liberate their nation from occupation. John Garand's decision to give his rifle to his government revealed his character entirely. He offered it royalty-free, never profiting from the more than 6 million rifles eventually produced. When Congress attempted to award him $100,000 in recognition of his genius, the bill failed to pass. Still, he received honors: the Medal for Meritorious Service in 1941 and the Medal for Merit in 1944. Garand remained at Springfield Armory until his retirement in 1953, having devoted 34 years to his craft. He held 54 firearms-related patents, every one assigned to the government without seeking additional payment. He lived simply in Springfield, Massachusetts, until his death in 1974, having witnessed his rifle serve through 3 wars and arm millions of American servicemen. In a rare 1940s interview, Garand reflected on his work with characteristic humility. "I am not a genius," he said. "I am just a mechanic who loves to solve problems." The M1 rifle was simply a problem that needed solving: how to give our soldiers the best possible weapon. If my rifle saved even one American life, then my work was worthwhile. Beyond the statistics of production, other numbers told the deeper truth. American infantry casualties in World War II reached 661,000. Japanese infantry casualties facing American forces were estimated between 1.5 to 2 million. German infantry casualties on the Western Front approached 800,000. M1-equipped units consistently achieved kill ratios of 3-1, and in favorable terrain, as high as 6 to 1. Military historians estimated over 750,000 enemy soldiers were killed by M1 rifle fire. The numbers pointed to something profound. Approximately 200,000 American lives were saved by the firepower advantage the M1 provided. Military historians calculated that casualty rates would have climbed 30 to 40% higher had American soldiers carried bolt-action rifles instead. That difference meant an additional 200,000 or more American deaths. Japan's highest commanders understood this disparity intimately. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commander of Japanese forces on Iwo Jima, wrote in his final report the bitter truth he had learned. The enemy's individual firepower exceeds our estimates by 300%. Each American rifleman possesses the firepower of 3 of our soldiers. This disparity cannot be overcome by spiritual strength alone. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel had reached similar conclusions after observing American forces in North Africa. In his diary, he noted, "Their individual weapons, particularly their semi-automatic rifles, give them a conclusive advantage in meeting engagements. We must avoid infantry confrontations where possible." Private First Class Audie Murphy, the most decorated American soldier of World War II, credited the M1 Garand with saving his life repeatedly. On January 26, 1945, during his Medal of Honor action, Murphy used his M1 to hold off an entire German company, firing over 200 rounds in a single engagement. Years later he wrote, "The M1 never let me down, when everything else failed, when artillery couldn't reach, when air support wasn't available, that rifle kept me alive." Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov, observing American forces during joint operations in 1945, grasped the weapon's significance immediately. "The American soldier is well armed," he commented. "His semi-automatic rifle gives him a significant advantage in combat. We must develop similar weapons for the Red Army." This observation contributed directly to Soviet development of the SKS and, later, the AK-47. The M1 Garand became more than a weapon. It represented American industrial power and democratic strength. The rifle that armed citizen soldiers from farms and factories proved superior to weapons carried by professional soldiers of totalitarian regimes. Post-war surveys showed that 94% of veterans rated the M1 as excellent or very good. When asked what single piece of equipment contributed most to victory, the M1 consistently ranked in the top 3, alongside the Jeep and the C-47 transport aircraft. Bill Mauldin, the celebrated World War II cartoonist, captured the bond between American soldiers and their rifles in his Willie and Joe cartoons. In one unforgettable panel, a soldier is shown carefully cleaning his mud-caked M1, while his own uniform remains filthy, with the caption, "I'll worry about me after I take care of her. She takes care of me." After the war ended, America distributed M1 Garands to allies worldwide through military assistance programs. South Korea received 600,000 rifles, Greece got 200,000, Turkey received 300,000, Iran obtained 165,000, the Philippines got 150,000, Pakistan received 130,000, Denmark got 85,000, Norway received 75,000, Italy received 232,000 rifles, including those manufactured under license in Italian factories. These rifles influenced a generation of military leaders and weapons designers worldwide. The principle of semi-automatic operation became the global standard, directly traceable to the M1 Garand's success. Its operating system influenced virtually every successful military rifle that followed. The M14, which replaced it, was essentially an M1, with a detachable magazine and selective fire capability. The Ruger Mini 14, popular with law enforcement and civilians, copied the Garand's action. Even modern rifles like the M16 and M4 carbine incorporate principles first proven in the M1 Garand. John Garand's gas-operated rotating bolt became the standard for reliability and accuracy. His method of controlling gas pressure through a precisely sized port in the barrel remains essentially unchanged in modern military rifles. The operating rod and bolt design, though refined over decades, traces directly back to Garand's original patents from the 1930s. Today, M1 Garands rank among the most sought-after military collectibles. The civilian marksmanship program has distributed over 500,000 surplus M1s to American citizens since its inception. Many bear multiple rebuild stamps indicating service in World War II, Korea, and beyond. Tangible connections to history. At Camp Perry, the national matches continue to feature M1 Garand competitions. Shooters using 70-year-old rifles regularly achieve accuracy that would have seemed impossible to the soldiers who first carried them into combat. The John C. Garand match, established in 1985, honors the inventor while demonstrating the enduring accuracy of his design. Collectors particularly prize rifles with documented combat history. An M1 Garand confirmed to have been carried at D-Day can sell for over $25,000. Even common examples remain functional, reliable rifles, a testament to the quality of their design and manufacture. The M1 Garand story offers enduring lessons about military innovation. Technological superiority at the individual level matters. Throughout the Pacific Campaign, outnumbered American forces prevailed through superior individual firepower. Today's emphasis on the individual soldier as a system continues this philosophy. Manufacturing capability determines military potential. The ability to produce 5.4 million rifles while maintaining quality standards proved as important as the rifle's design itself. Modern military power still depends on industrial capacity and quality control. Simplicity and reliability trump complexity. The M1's straightforward operation and maintenance made it effective in every combat environment. Modern weapons systems often sacrifice reliability for capability, a trade-off the M1 never made. Training and technology multiply effectiveness. The M1 gave each rifleman unprecedented firepower, but only when properly trained. The synthesis of superior equipment and superior training created unmatched combat effectiveness. Industrial democracy can outproduce totalitarian command economies. American factories, converted from civilian production, outproduced purpose-built Axis armaments industries. This lesson remains relevant in an era of industrial competition between democratic and authoritarian powers. Perhaps the greatest testament came from America's enemies. After the war, both German and Japanese military institutions studied the M1 intensively. Their conclusion was unanimous. The semi-automatic rifle had been the determining factor in American infantry superiority. A captured Japanese training document from 1944 stated simply, "Avoid direct engagement with American rifle units unless possessing 3-to-1 numerical superiority or supporting weapons. Their individual firepower negates our spiritual advantage." A German report from the Waffen-SS training school at Bad Tölz, dated January 1945, noted, "The American semi-automatic rifle has changed the nature of infantry combat. Our troops must be trained to expect and counter sustained rapid fire from individual riflemen. Traditional assault tactics are obsolete against such firepower." Corporal Charles E. Commando Kelly, who earned the Medal of Honor in Italy, reflected years later on what had won the war. "People ask me if it was the atomic bomb, the B-29, the Sherman tank," he said. "I tell them it was simpler than that. It was the M1 rifle. Every GI had one, every GI could use it, and it never let us down." Technical Sergeant Vernon McGarity, captured shortly after his Medal of Honor action at the Battle of the Bulge, witnessed firsthand the impact of American firepower on German forces. The extraordinary defensive stand his unit mounted, though ultimately overwhelmed, demonstrated the staying power that M1-equipped units possessed, even against superior numbers. Marine Private First Class Albert E. Schwab, who posthumously received the Medal of Honor on Okinawa, wrote in his final letter home, "Mum, this rifle they gave me is something special. It shoots as fast as I can aim. The Japanese just can't match it. If I make it home, it'll be because of this rifle." In the pre-dawn darkness of October 26, 1942, when Staff Sergeant Mitchell Page held his position against overwhelming Japanese forces, and when soldiers of the 164th Infantry Regiment brought their M1 Garands into combat on Guadalcanal, they carried more than just rifles. They carried the culmination of American industrial genius, the product of one immigrant's mechanical brilliance, and the instrument that would permanently alter the nature of warfare. From that night on Henderson Field to the final shots fired in August 1945, the M1 Garand proved itself in every theatre, every climate, and every type of combat. It armed citizen soldiers who had never fired a weapon in anger and turned them into the most effective infantry force the world had ever seen. The numerical facts were irrefutable. 5,168,172 rifles produced, arming over 16 million American servicemen, achieving casualty ratios that had never been seen in modern warfare. But beyond the numbers lay a more fundamental truth. The M1 Garand had democratized firepower, giving individual soldiers capabilities that previously required crew-served weapons. General Douglas MacArthur stated, "The Garand rifle is one of the greatest contributions to our armed forces." This contribution extended far beyond military victory. The M1 Garand represented American values made manifest in steel and wood: innovation, quality, reliability, and the belief that superior technology in the hands of free citizens could overcome tyranny. The M1 Garand did not just change tactics or doctrine, it changed the essential nature of ground combat. For the first time in history, the individual rifleman possessed firepower that could dominate the battlefield. This shift from bolt action to semi-automatic warfare was as significant as the earlier transition from single-shot to magazine-fed rifles. When military historians analyze the factors that led to Allied victory in World War II, they cite industrial capacity, logistics, air superiority, and code breaking. All were vital, but in the mud of Italy, the jungles of the Pacific, the hedgerows of France, and the frozen hills of Korea, victory ultimately came down to individual soldiers with rifles. And for American soldiers, that rifle was the M1 Garand. John Cantius Garand died in 1974, having lived to see his inventions serve 3 generations of American warriors. He never sought fame, never profited from his genius, and lived quietly in the knowledge that his rifle had helped preserve freedom when it was most threatened. His greatest reward, he once said, was knowing that American soldiers had the best rifle in the world when they needed it most. The final word belongs to a soldier. Staff Sergeant Raymond Zussman, who would posthumously receive the Medal of Honor for actions in France in September 1944, wrote in his final letter home, "Mum, if you want to know what's keeping me alive over here, it's my rifle, my buddies, and the knowledge that we've got the best equipment in the world. This M1 rifle, it's like having a guardian angel that never misses. In workshops across America, in factories running 3 shifts, in the genius of one Canadian-born inventor, and in the hands of millions of American soldiers, sailors, and Marines, the M1 Garand had become what General Patton proclaimed, the greatest battle implement ever devised. Its 5 million rifles did not just arm America's military, they revolutionized the very nature of warfare and helped save the world from tyranny. The distinctive ping of an ejecting en-bloc clip became the sound of freedom advancing one 8-round clip at a time across the battlefields of the world. That sound, once heard on every battlefield from Normandy to Okinawa, echoes still in the memory of those who were there and in the gratitude of generations who were not. When the last World War II veteran passes into history, when the last Korean War soldier tells his final story, the M1 Garand will remain in museums and collections, in the hands of target shooters at Camp Perry, a tangible reminder of the time when American ingenuity, industrial might, and individual courage combined to save civilization itself. 5 million rifles, 16 million soldiers, one brilliant design, one immigrant inventor, one free nation standing against tyranny. The M1 Garand was, is, and shall remain the greatest battle implement ever devised, not just because of what it was, but because of what it represented. The ability of free people, properly armed and trained, to defeat any enemy, overcome any odds, and preserve liberty for future generations.